Hello and warm greetings. Welcome to Analyst presented to you by Vajiram and Ravi. Here we discuss 7 articles in 2 different sections, consolidating your current affair preparation for UPSC CSE at one place. In the first analysis section, we discuss pulse in the nerves of food security. We discuss this in the context of a petition in Supreme Court for MSP for pulses, highlighting the need for diversification in our agriculture. It allows us for a lowdown on pulses production status and the way forward. Next up, we discuss the issue of restoring the majesty of Parliament. We discuss this in the context of rising acrimony and declining productivity of the Parliament, allowing us the need to uphold the majesty of the Parliament. Next up, in the prelims pointer section, we discuss 5 articles with a lot of value addition in context of your prelims 2026. So stay tuned. Starting with the first topic, we discuss today the humble pulses that we eat, how these pulses act as a pulse in the nerves of nation food security. And not just food security, they are very nerves of India's farmers' livelihood, how they are having an impact on India's import bill and how many challenges they are facing. We take a lowdown at that issue because recently a petition has been filed in Supreme Court where Supreme Court has also asked the government to even consider giving MSP for these pulses procurement as well. Also, they want us to reduce the import bill of pulses. This gives us an opportunity to take it from the perspective of our GS3 syllabus, which asks us to know about the issues related to the direct and indirect farm subsidies and MSP related issues. Also important from our prelims as well as mains previous year question perspective, we see that UPSC has already asked us questions regarding the need for crop diversification and the challenges therein. They have asked us that why we need to move away from the rice and the wheat system. More importantly, for the prelims, they have multiple times over asked us about the pulses. They have asked specific questions whether the pulses are, all of the pulses are procured in unlimited quantity under the MSP, whether the prices of the pulses and cereals are fixed and it is the price at which the price would never rise, whether the black grams are part of Kharif and Rabi crops or not, whether the green gram alone accounts for the nearly half of the pulse production, and whether pulses account for the highest import in terms of value in the last 5 years. We would take a look at all of these questions. We will give you enough content so that you are able to solve these questions if and so they appear in any form in next year's prelims. Now we discuss why pulses are so significant for Indians as well as India as an economy. We see nutritional security that is coming to us due to the pulses is enormous. If you take a look at it, if you consume 100 grams of rice, uncooked rice I am talking about, you are bound to get around 6 to 7 grams of protein. But on the other hand, if you were to consume 100 gram of black chana, which is a part of pulses, which is kind of a legume, you are supposed to get 21 gram of protein per 100 gram. In calorific value, both of them are similar. Both of them give you 360 calories around. So you see the amount of protein in the pulses is thrice as amount in the other food grains like rice and wheat. So it is immensely important for Indians, where majority of Indians are a vegetarian by nature. So they like so their diets inherently lack protein, and this is the sole source of protein that most of us could afford in light of the rising adulteration that we see in the dairy products. Also, not just the macronutrients like protein, but also the micronutrients in terms of availability of iron. It is very high in case of various legumes, various pulses. For example, we have rajmas, basically the kidney beans, immensely known in the medical fraternity to have improved the hemoglobin level in the human body. Very important from the nutritional security of Indians per se. But if we talk about the nation as a whole, India as a nation is the largest producer of the pulses in the world. India is also the largest consumer of the pulses in the world, and frankly it is also the largest importer of the pulses in the world despite all these achievements. If we talk about the numbers, India is producing around 25% of all the pulses that are produced ever in the world. It is also supposedly consuming 27% of the global consumption of the global pulses production. It is consuming in India. Then 14% of all the global imports of pulses that are done across the world, 14% of those they come to India. In terms of money, we are spending around $5.5 billion every year to import these pulses. If we talk about its role in Indian agriculture sector, the role is with respect to the production, it is occupying around 20 to 23% of the India's total area under food grains, and it is actually producing around 8 to 10% of the production. It is written 9 to 10, but of late we have seen, as you would see in this slide, that the production has very recently declined. So the number is around 8% of the total food grain production is contributed to us by pulses. If we talk about the profile of our country, we are producing around 25 million tons or around 250 lakh tons of pulses every year by occupying around 30 million hectares of area. This is signifying that it is also important from the perspective of the marginal farmers of a country, because if we see the, as we would see across the slides, that the pulsings production is majorly done by the farmers who are living in the dryland agriculture regions. They are not under the region which is under the assured irrigation. So majorly the small and the marginal farmer, basically the poorer farmers of our country, they are the precise farmers who are growing pulses for us. And if we see rise in production of pulses, if we see rise in the prices of pulses, it is bound to benefit those very marginal farmers of our country. Also, as we discussed, we are importing a lot of pulses. Around 20% of all the pulses that we need are met from the imports. We are spending around $5.5 billion on this. So it is important for us to enhance domestic production of these pulses. And also from the ecological benefits, if we see pulses, we naturally know that these are the leguminous crops. That means they have in their root nodules something known as nitrogen fixing bacteria that enhance the soil productivity. So if after pulses we are growing any other crops, we are bound to have better productivity out of our soil also. So from ecological benefits also, pulses make a lot of sense. Now thus it is promoting the sustainable agriculture also. It is a climate resilient crop because it does not emit as much methane as the rice crop would be producing. So it is a sustainable agricultural practice to grow more and more pulses in place of other food grains, for example rice and wheat. And if we see as per the economic growth of our country, we are witnessing a rising demand of pulses as people are getting more aware about the dietary needs, they are getting more aware about the need of protein as well as other micronutrients. The demand is rising. As of now, the per capita average that a person in India is getting around 18 kilogram of pulses every year. But as per the research of ICAR, they have assumed, they have identified that by the year 2039, this demand would rise to around 30. So that means we need around 1.8 times of the present day production. That means it is high time that we focus on enhancing the production of our pulses to meet this growing demand. And all that being said, we also think that pulses are significant part of our culture of culinary tradition. I mean, for God's sake, we know that Amritsari kulcha with chole has to be a fundamental human right. You cannot have a good life without it. We have given GI tag also to the Jammu Rajmas from the Bhadarwa region of Jammu. So they are so significant part of our culinary culture. They are so significant part of our culture of cuisines. We cannot have a life, we cannot imagine our life without them. That is why precisely the Niti Aayog also has brought down a strategy or a way forward for accelerating growth in pulses towards the goal of Atmanirbharta in this very year of 2025. We take a lowdown on this report as well and bring you the facts which are very important for our prelims perspective. For example, if we see the trend of production of pulses, even though the pulses are very important, we see the questions have already come to us regarding the Kharif and the Rabi distribution of the pulses. If we take a lowdown on this facts, we come to know that Rabi pulses are majorly the contributor to the pulses production. They are contributing around 2/3 of all the pulses that are produced. They are produced in the Rabi season, whereas Kharif produces only 1/3. This is a very densely drawn table. You are not supposed to know every details of it, but you are able to identify major insights from which are written over here. So you focus on this side. If we see the Rabi production, it is giving us 16 million tons of pulses, whereas Kharif is only giving us around 8. So there is a 1:3 ratio with respect to the Kharif pulses and 2:3 ratio with respect to the Kharif crops that we get in our country. Now, if we talk about the components of these crops, we see green gram and black gram. They are both grown in the Kharif as well as the Rabi season. On the other hand, we have chickpeas, which is basically the choles. They are grown majorly in the Rabi season. So, and also the chickpea is the major or the largest component of the total pulses production. Around 50% of all the pulses that are produced, they are constituted by chickpeas. In the option that UPSC gave us, it was written as black gram. It is not true because black gram is only a minuscule percentage of the total pulses production. We see there is a difference that you need to identify between black gram as well as a chole. This is chole, which is known as chickpea in English. There are various varieties of it. There might be known as Bengal gram, which are actually this Bengal gram. There might be another variety of chickpeas which we known as the Kabuli chanas. chana that we mostly use in the chola bhatura. But this black gram, it is a distinct crop. It is also a pulses. It is also actually known as a legume, and it is known in Hindi as urad dal, the dal that we precisely use for the dal makhani. So not only you are learning economics today, but also learning the culinary delights of our country. The green gram on the other hand is actually known in Hindi as the moong dal. So it is also one major chunk of the production of pulses in our country, but the majority of the pulses, they come from this chickpea variety, which is including the Bengal gram as well as the Kabuli chana variety. Right. So this is the breakdown of the pulses production. This is the breakdown as per season. We must remember that Rabi crops produces 2/3 of all the pulses, Kharif do not, because as precisely said earlier also, that pulses are majorly produced in the rain-fed seasons and they do not have enough irrigation system. So there is naturally less production when the rain fails, right? So this is the reason. Now moving to the more insights about it, how the production has fared over the time period. What is the regional distribution of it? If we talk about the states that produce most of the pulses, we see Madhya Pradesh is the largest state. Then we have Maharashtra and Rajasthan. These are the top 3 states that contribute around 55% of the total pulses production. But then in the devil lies the detail. If we see that although Madhya Pradesh has the highest production of pulses in our country, if in terms of area it is Rajasthan. Rajasthan has the highest land under cultivation for pulses. And if we talk about the productivity, again there is a surprise that Gujarat, which only has a very minuscule production, but it has the highest productivity among all the state in terms of pulses. So Gujarat would rank 1 if we talk about productivity. If we talk about production, Madhya Pradesh would rank 1. If we talk about area under cultivation, Rajasthan would rank 1. This is the insight that you draw from this very complex table. Now if we talk about the production in macro sense, we see that area under pulses cultivation, although it has increased over the time period, we have seen around 1/3 increase in the terms of area that is under the cultivation for pulses. So that area has increased. Production also has increased simultaneously. We see that in the year 2013, around 19 million ton worth of pulses were produced. Over the last 10 years, the production has increased to around 24 million ton in 2024. Now what we see here is that there is a trend where it was 19 million ton around in the year 2013. It rose to a peak of 27 million ton in the year 2022. Post that peak, we saw a decline to around 24 million ton in the year 2024, and this year's estimate tells us that it is around 25 million ton in the year 2025. Right. So why there has been a decline in these pulses? What are the reasons that we are not able to grow as many pulses, even though when we saw that the demand of the pulses over the time period is going to increase as per the estimate of ICAR? We need to see the issues that the farmers of these pulses production are facing in general. If we see, there is a major issue of the productivity of the pulses. If we see that as per the estimates of given by Agriculture Minister, India produce around 1500 lakh ton of rice, which is basically, if we talk about in million terms, it is 150 million ton worth of rice, but pulses only 25 million ton, which is around, we produce 6 times as many rice as we produce pulses. So there is this lack that exists between rice production versus pulse production. But why is this lack existing? One thing for sure, that area under rice would also be high, but productivity is a major challenge here. If we talk about the productivity of rice versus pulses, we see around 1 hectare of land would give you around 2600 kilograms of rice production. This is the yield per hectare of rice, which is around 2600. Can you guess the number for pulses? It is around 850 kilograms. That is basically less than 1/3 of the productivity of rice. So when the productivity of per hectare yield is less, farmers are naturally less inclined to grow pulses. Even so, when the government is also not procuring that pulses, we have in our country something known as an open-ended procurement for rice and wheat. You can produce as much rice and wheat and give to the government FCI. They would procure it as much as they want, as much as you want to give them. There is no end. It is open-ended. There is no restriction on it. But pulses, we do not have such open-ended policy regarding the procurement. So farmers are naturally not inclined to grow it because they are not very sure whether it would be produced or whether it would be procured or not. Right. So there are two factors here. One, yield per se is also less, and there is no assurance of procurement. That is two reasons for you. Other reasons include that environmental constraint. because we see that pulses are majorly grown by the farmers who are located in the poorer regions of our country. As we saw, the states of MP, Rajasthan, Maharashtra, these are not the state with a very high productivity anyway. They are not the state which are called as the state of green revolution. States like Western UP, Haryana, Punjab, which have the highest productivity, they are not growing it. And in these states also, it is the poorer farmer that are growing it, because they do not have as much access to irrigation. They are not able to produce the pricier crops like sugarcane or rice, and that is why, as a constraint, they are growing these crops of pulses. Naturally, the production is going to be less. Now, we see that low yield and tech adoption is also very less. Why? Because they do not have as much capital with them. They cannot have access to newer seeds. They are not having access to newer technology. They are not able to do integrated pest management, which is why leading to pest attacks like pod borer. And then in some areas where the farmers have become more aware, they are now shifting to the cash crops like the crops like sugarcane or coffee cultivation in the plantation areas, or even fruit orchards are being grown by the farmers. For example, kiwi fruit has just taken up in a big way. So these farmers are shifting to these more cash crops like kiwi and other fruit, other horticulture crops also. And then import dependence is a major issue regarding pulse production, because import prices of the imported pulses are less. That is why there was this Kisan Mahapanchayat that has actually filed a petition in Supreme Court. That is why we are discussing this, that over the time period we are seeing greater import of pulses. So they wanted the government to reduce the import of pulses, because it is harming their interest, because their crops are pricier than the imported crops. So the import competition is also one of the factors regarding the less availability of the crops and less viability for the farmers to grow those pulses crops. Now these are the issues that the India as a nation is facing regarding the pulses, which are actually, as we saw, are the pulse of national nutritional security as well as the livelihood security of these poorer farmers. But is the government not doing anything about it? They are, and we will discuss those steps. But let's first also take a note of very important aspect, that even though we saw that India is actually one of the largest importer, in fact the largest importer of pulses, there is a nuance here. In terms of volume, it is China. China is importing most number of pulses in terms of million tons. But in terms of value, India is the largest producer. India is the largest importer of pulses. So understand this nuance that we have regarding the import of pulses, that India is the largest importer. It is generally said that India is the largest importer of pulses, which is true in terms of value. But if the question specifically asks you whether in terms of volume also India is the largest, it is not. China is the largest importer of pulses, right? Hope that is clear. Also, it doesn't mean that even if India is the largest importer of pulses, that doesn't mean that India would not be exporting pulses. India, despite being an importer, is also one of the largest exporter of pulses in the world also. It ranks actually 9th in the global export of pulses also, taking around 2.5% of export share in the pulse market, right? So India is also an exporter as well as an importer, largest importer in terms of value, in terms of money, but second largest importer in terms of volume, in terms of the quantity of it, right? Once that is clear, let's see what the government is doing about the whole issue. Government has taken a lot of steps to improve pulse production in our country. Once they are doing the majority steps for the farmer sector as a whole, they have promoted the scheme of Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana to enhance the irrigation availability to these farmers. We have Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana for insurance to the farmers. We have Pradhan Mantri Krishi Vikas Yojana. Also, we are doing soil health management cards are given so that nutrition quality of the soil could be done. Market access to the farmers is also increased through the presence of ENAM, PM Asha scheme, which is basically a price difference is paid under this scheme, even if the assured production, if the assured procurement is not done by the government for these pulses. But the government is also taking various steps regarding the institutional procurement as well. For example, we have the NAFED as well as NCCF that are taking the procurement of these pulses from majorly from the states of MP as well as Maharashtra, because these are the largest producer of pulses, as we saw. We are also promoting awareness regarding these pulses in the global areas also, because we have earned GI tag for various pulses also. For example, as we were discussing, Bhadarve Rajmas of Jammu region, they have got a GI tag that is bound to enhance the awareness among the people regarding the specialized quality, specialized category of these pulses that we have in our country, right? But then of course we need to do more, because clearly as we saw, the numbers are not enough, and as with the demand is rising over the time period, we need to do more. What can we do? We can start with intercropping. In case of states like Uttar Pradesh and Maharashtra, where we have sugarcane crops being grown, we can simultaneously grow the pulses in those states, and that would give around 3 million ton more pulses to us. We can also use the rice fallow land that are present in our country, and that would give us another additional 3 million tons of pulses production. We can also optimize the traditional rice wheat binary system that we have in our country in majorly states of Haryana, Punjab, Western Uttar Pradesh, which are majorly the primary green agriculture, green revolution states. We can utilize those optimization where the land has been consistently used for the production of rice and wheat, and it is now in urgent need of restoring its fertility. Can utilize pulses because it has the legumes, it has leguminous properties which is allowing more nitrogen fixation. These properties would help regenerate the soil in these region, could also help production of more pulses in our country. We also have to move to other steps where we are supposed to manage the biotic and the abiotic stress that are causing decline in the production. Stress like drought, heat, pest attack, disease attack, all of these have to be managed. That would give resilience to the necessary production that are happening already in our country. We also need to enhance the quality of seed that is available to them, available to the farmer, by enhancing the genetic diversity of these seed. There could be another approach that we take in this regard. We could have cluster based seed villages, which is actually a pilot project that would be developed and would utilize the greater availability of the new quality of seed available to the farmers. We can enhance the productivity by bringing more area under irrigation, under assured irrigation, and enhancing the capital availability by giving more formal loans to these small and marginal farmers which are cultivating these crops in the rain-fed irrigation area. But this was about the backward interlinkages. What about the forward? What about the demand of this? We can have price support and market interventions where we are integrating more open-ended procurement of these pulses, as has been suggested by the Supreme Court to the government. We can balance the farmers and the consumers' interest. Right now, as we saw that over the time period, the import of the pulses have increased to around 4.5 million ton from earlier 2.5 million ton. Over the time period, that has increased because the production has declined from 27 million ton to 25 million ton. Once that is happening, we need more import to keep the prices at a lower level, at a stabilized level for our consumers. Already we are reeling under the pressure of imported inflation in terms of gas prices. We cannot have such inflation in terms of pulses prices also. So we are importing that. Now we need a balance between both these approaches, that farmers whose livelihood is dependent on the production of these crops, even that is balanced. And how do we do that? By integrating these pulses into the PDS system. In PDS we are giving already kerosene, wheat and rice. What if we are able to give more and more pulses, black chana, black gram, green moong? If these are given to the people in PDS at very subsidized prices, not only is it going to help the farmers to get more livelihood, but also help those people who are getting those ration to get more nutrients, get more protein, get more hemoglobin out of it. Then utilizing this potential for summer pulses. As we saw that Kharif pulses are only 1/3 of the total production of the pulses. There is major potential that we can derive out of it by managing these abiotic stress, by managing and incentivizing more and more production of Kharif based and summer based pulses. And then use data integration through the portal such as Sathi portal, which has recently been launched by the government for basically the seed tracking portal and holistic inventory management of these seeds for the pulses. We can utilize this and develop pulses as the pulse on which the nerves of India's food and nutritional security would work. I hope that was clear. Now let's try to solve the previous year question that we showed in the first. Now in the case of all cereal, pulses and OLC, the procurement at MSP is unlimited in any state and UT. It is obviously not correct, because had it been the case that pulses are ultimately procured at in an open-ended format, then we would not have faced these issues that we just discussed in this edition. In the case of cereal and pulses, MSP is fixed in state. It is not, prices will never rise, because it is not a ceiling price. It is basically a base price. It is a floor price, right? So answer here would be neither one nor two. Black gram can be cultivated both as Kharif and Rabi crops. Yes, we saw that. Green gram alone accounts for nearly half of pulse production. It does not, because it is chickpea, as we saw. So we eliminate second statement. In light of 3 decades, while the production of Kharif pulses has increased, production of Rabi pulses has decreased. It is not true. Although production of both of them has increased, it is always the Rabi crop which is higher than the Kharif crop. So third is also wrong. We come to the answer which is only 1. Now, with respect to which of the following is the highest import in terms of value in the past 5 years, you might mark answer pulses, but actually the answer is vegetable oil here. Why? Because vegetable oil accounts for around $20 billion worth of import every year, while pulses only account for, as we saw, $5.5 billion. We have import dependence in pulses also, but that import dependence is around 20% of all the need that we need pulses. We import 20% of those. But in case of oilseed, we are import dependent up to the extent of 60% of all the oilseed that we need. It is 60% of that is imported, right? So there are major differences between them. You are given a practice question here. Please try to answer this question and get it evaluated from your mentors. Moving to the next topic, restoring the majesty of the parliament. We discussed in the context of rising acrimony. We are witnessing a lot of debates and disruption in the parliament happening, but it is declining the productivity of the houses and how we need to restore the majesty of the parliamentary democracy in our country. Imported from the perspective of GS2, parliament structure, functioning and issues arising out of it. Now we discuss this in light of the previous year question that the UPSC has already asked, where they wanted us to know to what extent the parliament is able to ensure the accountability of the executive in India. If they are not functioning very well, they are not really supposed to, they cannot really hold the government, hold the executive accountable. So it is of prime importance that we understand that parliament as a body was designed to be the foundation of the representative democracy. It was supposed to act in its routine function. It was supposed to hold the cabinet accountable. It was supposed to be a forum where the government and opposition are interacting. It is meant to operate in a structured way where every interaction is leading to the accountability of the executive by the parliament. Under Article 75 Clause 3, we see that executive is collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha. But when such disruptions are happening, when the allegations are being levelled against the chairpersons of this house, there were allegations of discrimination and biasness against Honorable Speaker Shri Om Birla ji. There were also allegations against the former Vice President, the former Chairperson of Rajya Sabha, Shri Jagdeep Dhankar ji, regarding the biasness and the discrimination that is practiced by the presiding officer that has made the house to become a center of political partisanship. That means the protest could not be done inside the house. That means the discussions could not be done within the house. That would lead opposition members to go outside the house and protest there. Now, what are the concerning issues regarding it? Why it is so important for the parliament to function? If we see that over the time period, it is not just disruption. We see the decline in productivity also. In the last monsoon session that happened, the productivity of the house itself declined to around 34%. Of 100 sitting, if it was supposed to happen, there were only 34% sitting that could have taken place in the light of disruption that were taking place. Now, there is a reduction in the role of parliamentary committees because bills are not thoroughly discussed. They are being referred to the parliamentary committee in a very less frequent manner. Only 16% of the bill was sent to the standing committee. What it leads to is a lack of confidence in the policies of the government because not much political insight goes into it, not much political discussion happen over it. There is frequent suspension of the member. Around 130 members were suspended in one single session of the Lok Sabha earlier. Their disruption politics has become the new normal. People are protesting for every small issue, and it has become the new normal that people have started cracking joke about parliament as being only a disrupting body. There is a decline in the private members bill. So private members, their discussions are not forthcoming. The bills are not being passed. The last bill that was initiated by the private member and it was passed, it was back in the year 1970s. We are having decline in the sittings of the Lok Sabha also, and even those sittings that are happening, they are being disrupted by these oppositions as well as the acrimony between the ruling party as well as the opposition. But what are the causes of these political disruption that are happening in the parliament? Why is these disruption and why is there a decline in the majesty of the parliament? We see this happening because there is a tool that is being used by the members of the parties, various parties, opposition as well as the ruling party, that they use disruptions of the house as a tool of political maneuvering. The executive might want to escape the questions, the opposition might want to escape the responsibility, and then there is a lack of political consensus that neither the opposition nor the government, they have not jointly decided the agenda of the house. It is precisely the government that is deciding, and if the opposition is not getting enough means to vent out its anger regarding the policies of the government, they have left with no options but to disrupt the house, but to protest outside the house if their voice is not heard inside the house. Then there is media focus. Several political parties, regional political parties as well as smaller political parties, they use the idea that there is a lot of media around the parliament house, so let's talk whatever we want to talk just to get into the limelight. So this is also one of the reason why we see a lot of political protest happening, just to come to the idea that yes, we raise the issue. Whether it matters or not, it hardly matters. Whether it is a matter of national importance, it hardly matters. But then they are using it just as a means to further the politicization, further their own political career. The quality of representative in our parliament is also a major concern. We see around 46% of the MP, they have a criminal charge against them. So it is natural that the quality of debate would not be of the such level that we have witnessed in the past. Also, the tools that are available to the presiding officer, that are not sufficient. While in Lok Sabha, the speaker could actually name a member and ask him to withdraw from the house. There is no such authority with the Rajya Sabha chairperson. They are only supposed to withdraw, ask the person to withdraw if a resolution is passed by the whole of the house, and that is not very forthcoming. So the disruptions, there is no deterrence effect against this disruption. There is not much tool to stop this from happening. Also, the rules like anti-defection law, this bounds the member of a political party to follow the line of the political party. So if the whole political party is actually engaging in the protest, it is actually not supporting the bill, the member also of that political party cannot go away from the line of the party, because it would be bound to disqualification. So some of them are compulsively doing this because of the party direction, and that could be any political party. Now, what is the impact of it? Why does it matter so much? If you see that it is ignoring the pressing issues of the day. Why cannot the LPG shortage in our country can be discussed within the house? Why does the member of opposition has to move outside the house to discuss the same and then get mocked at for the same? Now, if we see the issue of loss of social capital, because the people are also thinking that parliament may not yield the right result, they are having less hope from the parliamentarians. They are not going to the parliamentarians as frequently to raise their issues, and they are using other means to get their issues resolved. For example, there is greater dependence on judiciary instead of the local representative. We saw recently in the last section that we discussed about the petition going to SC regarding the MSP, where MSP for pulses was asked not from the parliamentarian, not from the executive, not from the government, but from the Supreme Court, that you please tell the government to give us MSP on the pulses. Now, this is basically leading to the aspect also of judicial activism and overreach. It is might not be the right might not be the right institution to actually govern the economics of MSP. It is already a problem that we saw in various committee reports, that it is not reaching to the targeted beneficiary. So there are a lot of policy concentric issues that have to be considered. There are a lot of different opinions that have to be considered for it, and it is not the prerogative of the judiciary to talk about these things. But then if the parliament house it is getting disrupted, if they are not discussing the issue thoroughly, then the affected person has no recourse. There is a decline of responsive and responsible democracy, because we see a lot of debate being taken for the frivolous issue and not for the important issue that we discuss. And the economic impact on exchequer is humongous. Every minute that the parliament is functioning, it is costing around 2.5 lakh rupees. Every day costs around 9 crore rupees. This is not their money, this is the money of the public exchequer that is being sacrificed for these disruption, for lack of authority of parliament that is getting declined because of the acrimony between the opposition and the government, not allowing the house to function properly. Then what do we do about it? Of course, certain positive steps have been taken, as has been replied to by the Honorable Home Minister regarding the motion of removal of the Speaker. He said that opposition members have been given more space till now. Around 56% of the 0-hour times has been given to the opposition, despite they having less numbers compared to the ruling party and the coalition. Under the leadership of Honorable Speaker, they have said that more productivity of House has seen. We saw in one session the productivity had declined to even 30%. But if we talk about the average, it has been more than the 17th Lok Sabha at least. The 17th Lok Sabha functioned for roughly 88% of the day. But in the recent session, 97% overall productivity was raised, because in certain sessions, we saw productivity rising to even 130%, where the parliamentarians sat for even more time than that was stipulated. Right. So in aggregate, we see such things also happening in our country. It has also debated in the 14 regional languages. That showcases that parliament is becoming more inclusive over the time period. It is not just English educated or only Hindi speaking people who could be participating in the parliament. But we still need more focus on improving the functioning of the house in general. We need a more functional house, and how we can go about it is that we can have legal changes where we reduce the anti-defection laws application within the house. even only when the question is regarding the fall of the government, when the question is regarding the non-confidence motion, only then the ADL functions, ADL provision, they should be revoked. Otherwise, the parliamentarian, the MPs, they should have liberty to express their opinion and do not fall for this coercive attempt of disrupting the house. Then there could be a committee referral that could be legally binding. We saw only 16% bill being referred to the committee. There could be a 50% of threshold for the bills to be referred to the parliamentarian committee before they are being passed. There could be mandatory 100-day sittings. There should not be less than 100-day sitting in a year. And if there is somebody who is disrupting the house, then there must be penalized. One could be a monetary policy also, monetary penalty also, but then major effectiveness would come if their attendance is not marked for the whole of the day. Once the attendance is not marked, you understand that members, if he would have voted on the same day on any of the bill, that vote would also stand to be nullified. So if somebody who has disrupted the house and he is marked absent from the house, the vote that he would have done for the day or is supposed to do after his disruption, that would not be counted, and it would be a case of either the stability of the government or even the fall of the government. The costs are very high, so we must use these tools. There could be consensus based agenda that could develop. The opposition party should be given enough time and given one day at least in a week where they would decide the agenda. If they are deciding the agenda, then there would be no reason that they are disrupting the house. They would get their way, they would ask the question to the government and the government would reply them. In theory, this is possible. And we can also seek steps to enhancing the private members bill. We see that only 1970 was the last time we saw one bill, and regarding this a PIL has already been passed in the Supreme Court that want more and more effort to be done by the individual MPs to raise the concern of the individual citizens of our country, so that they are not knocking at the door of Supreme Court for every small things. If this is done, Parliament would restore the majesty that it has just lost to disruption, and it would try to become a more debate house, discussion house, deliberation house, and not a disruption based house. That was in this topic. We have a practice question for you. Kindly attempt it and get it evaluated from your mentors. So moving to the next topic, we saw yesterday election schedule have been announced for 4 states as well as 1 union territory, which are supposed to give elections to the state legislative assemblies. States including Assam, West Bengal, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, as well as Puducherry. They are going to witness elections right now. And if we talk about the importance of this issue regarding our prelims perspective, we are supposed to know something regarding a model code of conduct which comes into force immediately, automatically, once the election schedule is announced by the ECI. Right? Remember one thing, that as per the constitution, under Article 172, we see that the tenure of state legislative assembly is 5 years unless it is dissolved earlier by the governor. But once it is dissolved, an election has to be held as per the section 15 of the RPA Act of 1951. Under the section 15, what does it say? That a general election shall be held on the expiration of the duration of the assembly or on its resolution. Once it is dissolved or the term has expired, there must be election that has been held. And when would this election be held? That date would be told by the governor on the advice of Election Commission of India. What says that? It is written in the second clause of this, that for the said purpose, the governor or the administrator, as the case may be, shall by one or more notifications in the official gazette of the state would tell the date on which they would call upon all the assembly constituency to elect a new legislative assembly for them. The date should be recommended by the Election Commission and it is conveyed to the governor. Governor would pass a gazette notification and would tell us about the date on which the elections are supposed to be held. This is basically the process of it. And once this election schedule is announced, the model code of conduct, it comes automatically into its force. Now, what is this model code of conduct? Model code of conduct is basically a set of guidelines which are issued by the Election Commission of India for the conduct of all the political parties as well as the candidates during the election. It comes into force immediately with the announcement of the election schedule by the Commission for ensuring free and fair elections, which are basically the bedrock of the parliamentary democracy. Now, what does it include and how it has evolved over the time period? If we see the history of model code of conduct, it has been given beautifully in a book published by the Election Commission of Faith known as the Leap of Faith. That was a book published by the Election Commission of India. In that, they beautifully detail the history of model code of conduct. That first of all, the idea came in the 1960s when the elections were being held during Kerala. It had its origin in that. But the first time that it actually published something known as a guidelines for the elections, it was known as the MCC which is today we know it as the model code of conduct, or how somebody should actually be conducting themselves. Initially the MCC used to mean like minimum code of conduct. It was launched during the midterm election that happened in year 1968 to 1969. During that first time, the first MCC was initially introduced by the ECI. This is the starting of it. It has over the time period has been revised in the year 1979, 82, 91. In the year 1979, what happened was they added the sections for party in power was introduced. That if a political party is in power, how should they exercise their power? That was mentioned in the MCC in the year 1979. And over the time period, some later additions have been made to the Model Code of Conduct, which is giving basically the guidelines that how one should conduct themselves during the schedule of election is in force, right? It would start immediately when the schedule is announced and would end only after the result is announced. And what somebody should be doing and should not be doing, what are the do's and don'ts, that are given in the 7 parts of this Model Code of Conduct. It is basically combining of 7 parts. One is talking about the general conduct, another is about meeting, procession, polling day. Fifth part of it is talking about polling booth, sixth about the observer, and seventh about the party in power. Observer talks about that election commission shall be appointing some observer. So if any candidate or any person is having some queries or some issues regarding how the election process is being happening, they could consult and bring to the notice of the observer, who shall then give the report to the election commission itself that how the election are happening. Then the 7th part talked about the party in power, how the party which is in ruling party, how it is supposed to conduct themselves. Of course, they are not supposed to combine their official visit with the electioneering process. They must not use government transport, for example, government aircraft, government vehicles for campaigning in the election. They must not announce any new scheme or lay foundation stone for any project or scheme, because that would have the impact of swaying the voters in their favor. For example, right before an election, if you are announcing a scheme giving some money to the voters, they might vote for your party. So when this MCC is in force during the time period that the schedule is announced, from the date the schedule is announced, you cannot launch any new scheme. So if you already want to launch any scheme for the people, for the welfare of the people apparently, then you must launch as a ruling party before the date of election is announced in these constituent assemblies, in these state legislative assemblies. What are the other provisions of this Model Code of Conduct? It says that places of worship should not be used for the political propaganda. Party should not criticize the aspect not connected with the public activities of the leader. Criticism of other political parties should be confined to their policies. Political ad should actually be pre-certified by the Media Certification and Monitoring Committee of the Election Commission. People carrying cash should present valid documents that whether this cash is, it should ideally not be for bribing the voters. That is how it is ensuring that free and fair elections are conducted in the country. It is a guideline launched by the Election Commission of India, but remember, it is not a statutory law. It does not have the force of law to be able to enforce it. It is only guidelines. If something is being violated out of this Model Code of Conduct, the Election Commission as well as the courts, they use other sections of other acts to punish the person. For example, Indian Penal Code, which is now replaced by BNS. There are certain provision in the BNS which are actually talking about the same thing that this Model Code of Conduct is pursuing. That if somebody is promoting enmity on the religious ground, it is punishable under the MCC. It is not promoted under the MCC, but it is punishable under the sections of BNS, right? So initially in itself, Model Code of Conduct is not actually legally binding. It has no force of law, but if certain provisions, if they are also punishable under some other law, then the law would take its own course from those other laws, which is Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita or any other act for that matter. So this was Model Code of Conduct for you. Moving to the next topic, why is US investigating India? What is this investigation under 301 known as? Why is we discussing what is the issue regarding this investigation? 301 is basically nothing but a provision or a section of the US Trade Act of 1974. It is an act that is passed by the legislature of the United States of America, under which they want to safeguard their businesses, that if any business, any practices is being conducted by any country like India, China, Switzerland, any of those countries, they are actually published. 16 countries are under their investigation right now, which are under which they are examining that if they are actually undertaking any practices that may be unreasonable or discriminatory and create burden or restrict the US commerce, impacting US based businesses negatively. If any of these countries are using such practices, then it authorizes the president to launch some tariffs on them just to nullify the disadvantage that they are giving to the American business owners. This is basically the 301 investigation that is undertaken by USTR. Who is USTR? USTR is basically US Trade Representative that conducts these investigations against these countries. There are two investigations that are currently undergoing. One is involving 16 countries, another is involving 60 countries. In the first investigation, they are basically targeting whether countries like India are using excess manufacturing capacity to export to US in a manner that hurts the American business. That is one investigation. Whether India has expensive, very high capacity to dump products into America, that is what they are looking at. And second investigation is about whether countries have taken sufficient steps to prohibit import of goods produced with forced labor. That whether the goods that are produced in certain countries, countries like China, Vietnam, India, if they are produced with forced labor, if they are violating the labor laws, these countries like India who are actually exporting goods to USA, they should take steps that these goods are not exported to USA. There should be reduced imports into USA of these goods which are produced by this forced labor, violating labor laws which are prevalent actually in America. This is what their argument is, and this is basically an internal act of the parliament or the legislature of USA itself. It has nothing to do with any WTO norm, any UN norm. Section 301 is basically a US based act. It has nothing to do with any international mechanism, right? But for more value addition about this topic, we see that India and USA, they are large trading partners. In fact, USA is the largest trading partner for India for 4 consecutive years. In terms of only good, we traded around $131 billion of good. If we combine goods and services both, the number crossed actually $200 billion. And as per USA, India has a surplus of around $58 billion with respect to the import that we do from USA. But as per Indian government, the trade surplus is merely $42 billion. Be that as it may, it is still the largest surplus that India has with any country. And that is what precisely is plaguing USA. That is something that they are not liking. That is why they want their USTR to investigate if India is using any other means to use its excessive capacity to dump these products into USA, or whether it is using to manufacture these products by using forced labor or not. That is what they are trying to investigate, and if these investigations are found true, they might even impose more tariffs on countries like India. There are allegations against India that India's global good trade surplus from sectors like textile, health, construction good and automotive goods, or also goods like solar panels, they are produced due to excessive annual capacity. Our annual capacity is 3 times as per the domestic demand. So any goods that we produce, we are bound to export to India, export to other countries like USA. That is the allegation that they are giving. But they don't know the reality that in India we actually face shortage of these goods. Had there been so many solar panels in our country, our renewable energy output would have been shooting through the roof. But then USA being USA would be looking for their own capitalist interest of their businesses, and that is why these investigation against India. Moving to the next topic, Sangeet Kalanidhi Award. Recently, Jayanti Kumaresh, who is basically a Veena exponent from South India, she has been awarded with the Sangeet Kalanidhi Award by Madras Music Academy. At the 100th conference of Madras Music Academy, she has been given this Sangeet Kalanidhi Award. So let's understand what this award is all about. It is basically the award Sangeet Kalanidhi Award is considered as the highest accolade in terms of Carnatic music. The award itself came into existence in 1942. It is given to a person who has done exceptional work in the field of Carnatic music. Earlier it was given that a senior musician or expert was invited to preside over the Madras Music Academy's annual conference. So in 1942 it was decided that a musician who would be invited, he would also be conferred the title of Sangeet Kalanidhi. So the president of the session of musical conference of Madras MMA, he is the person, he is eminent in the field of Carnatic music, and once he comes to preside this session, he is given this Sangeet Kalanidhi Award. After some time, this Sangeet Kalanidhi Award came into conjoined with another award known as MS Subbulakshmi Award. Award is actually also include gold medal as well as a Biruda Patra, which is basically a citation that yes, this person has been given this award. This MS Subbulakshmi Award is something that was added later. It is actually awarded by the Hindu newspaper house. More important from our exam point of view is that which is the body that gives this Sangeet Kalanidhi Award? It is of course the Madras Music Academy of Madras. And how did it came into existence? Madras Music Academy is actually an outcome of our freedom struggle. When the Madras session of Congress in 1927 was being held at of course at Madras, then there was felt that there must be a music institution that should be formulated, and in light of that, from the All India Congress session held in Madras in December 1927, a music conference was deliberated, and this led to the formation of Madras Music Academy. It was actually an organization that was preceding the Sangeet Natak Academy also, which was formed in the year 1960s. So it was a primary organization of music in India in the time period of 1927 Madras session. For your homework, please tell which was the person, which was the freedom fighter who was actually the president of this Madras session of Congress of 1927. Right? It was actually initiated by Sir C.P. Ramaswamy, who was actually not the president. There was somebody else. You have to write down that in the comment. In the process, it began in 1929, the process of annual conferences, and they are also celebrating a December music festival in the city of Madras. Also, you need to understand that this award, Sangeet Kalanidhi award, is given basically for the Carnatic music, and Carnatic music is basically a theme of Indian music form. We have two forms of Indian music, which is Hindustani classical music and Carnatic music. Carnatic music is distinct from Hindustani classical because it has a distinct format of Mela Karta system, which is basically a very stringent laws are there, stringent rules, from which the classification of raga is very rule based. There is less improvisation that is given to a musician to innovate in that, but they are strictly supposed to follow rules, and this beauty lies in this strict regulation of these norms. The evolution of this traces its origin from Vidyaranya, who actually wrote the book known as Sangeet Sara. Yes, the same Vidyaranya who was also participant of the foundation of Vijayanagara Empire. He was actually the political guru of Harihara and Bukkavan. And then Sangeet Sara was a book that talks about 15 Mela system, which is basically the origin of the Carnatic music system. Then we had Purandar Dasa, who is known as the father or the Pitamaha of Carnatic music industry. We had other music trinity also, including Muthuswami Dikshitiyar, Shama Sasri, as well as Tyagaraja. They have already asked one question about Tyagaraja, who is also the major proponent of Carnatic music in the 18th century. He functioned from around 1767 to 1847 is the timeline when Tyagaraja functioned. He was promoting kritis in worship in the praise of Lord Rama and not Krishna. UPSC has asked a question where they give Krishna as an option. Tyagaraja created several new ragas, of course it did. Annamacharyas and Tyagaraja are contemporary. It is not, because as we saw, Tyagaraja functioned in the 18th century. From this time period, Annamacharya on the other hand functioned around 16th or 15th century. Annamacharya was also a proponent of Carnatic music, but he wrote praises in terms of in praise of Lord Venkateshwara of Tirupati temple. Right. So we come to the right answer where we eliminate the first statement is wrong because he did not praise Lord Krishna, and on the basis of that we eliminate two statements. The third statement is also wrong, as we see they are not contemporary, so answer of this is B. This is a previous year question asked by UPSC in the year 2018. The next topic is about passes of Himalayas, especially the passes of Jammu Kashmir. They are under snowfall, especially the pass of Zojila. Now Zojila, or as it is pronounced Zoji in the Ladakhi language, it is basically a mountain pass of blizzards. Blizzards are basically the snowstorms that are encountered majorly in this region. It is a very high altitude pass. It is at a height of 11,000 feet or around 3,500 meter high. Right? It is a very high pass, and it is connecting basically the region of Kashmir with the region of Ladakh. It is actually closed for 6 months across the year because of heavy snowfall. And then it was also famous in history for the site of Indo-Pakistani War of 1947-48. Because it was so important, because it is the only connection that we have from Kashmir Valley to Ladakh Valley. It was actually captured by the Indian Army under this operation Bison that happened in November 1948. Now you understand that there is a misnomer that happens with most of law in our country. The law word means pass itself. So if we say Joji La or Zoji La, and we should not write pass after it, because Zoji La itself means Zoji pass, right? So that is how it should be done. But more importantly, from our exam point of view, Zojila Pass is, as it is under snow for half of the year, and it is very important for the connectivity to this region. We are trying to construct a Zojila tunnel that would give an all-weather connectivity to us. How it would connect? We know that Zojila is connecting the Kashmir Valley to the Ladakh region, precisely connecting the two towns of Gandarbal, which is in Kashmir, very near to the Sonmarg region, very near where the Amarnath Yatra starts, from the village of Baltal, from where Amarnath Yatra starts, and till the region of Minamarg, which is basically on the side of Ladakh, right? So it is basically connecting the district. Minamarg is actually a village which is in the Kargil district. Kargil district is a district in the UT of Ladakh. So now it should be very clear that we are connecting Kashmir with Ladakh, precisely the district of Gandarbal with Kargil, precisely the village of Baltal with Myanmar. Right now we have this existing road which is very twisty and torvy, and it is also under reeling, lot of snowfall. Half of the year it is closed in the snowfall. Now we are trying to create this alternate tunnel under it, and this tunnel, because it is passing through the Jozila pass, the tunnel is also known as Jozila tunnel. It is very important for us because it is the only all-weather connectivity between Srinagar and Leh on NH1. National Highway 1 basically means it is the highest highway. It is basically the northernmost highway which is connecting in the east-west direction. That is why it is known as NH1 as per the new nomenclature of national highways. Now it is basically also, you must know that there is not just a tunnel that we are going to construct. Of course, tunnel is going to be there, which is going to be around 14.15 kilometer in length. Also, we are going to develop an approach road near this Z-More tunnel, which is already existing, right? So we would be creating a 14.15 long bi-directional tunnel without any egress or escape passage between Baltal and Myanmar. So it would be a one straight tunnel. It will be India's longest road tunnel and Asia's longest bi-directional tunnel, which would be 9.5 meter wide and 7.57 meter high in the shape of a horseshoe. This is connecting the passes of Jozila, which is a major gateway between Srinagar and Leh. But it is not the only pass in Jammu Kashmir. If you see the location of Jammu and Kashmir, we have region of Jammu, then we have Kashmir, and then we have the region of Ladakh. We talk about this pass that exists here, which is Jozila. But to connect Jammu and Kashmir, we also have other passes. For example, there is a pass here known as Banihal Pass. I'll draw it here. Jammu to Kashmir, we have one pass known as Banihal Pass, and another pass which is also connecting Jammu with Kashmir through the different region, different aspect known as Peer Ki Gali. This is also another pass that exists from Jammu and Kashmir. Another pass that we have Kashmir to Leh, we need Jozila Pass. There is also another pass that exists between the present day, the Kashmir which is presently in the occupation or illegal occupation of Pakistan. We have the region of Gilgit-Baltistan. To connect the city of Gilgit with the city of Srinagar, we have another pass here which is actually known as the Burzil Pass. This pass, it is actually connecting the city of Srinagar with Gilgit. So these are the few passes that are available also in the region of Kashmir. Right now we are talking about this region where we are connecting Kashmir with Ladakh. Moving to the next and the last topic regarding the UPSC's new rule for appointment of DGP. Basically, we would have heard in news a lot of time that states are not actually appointing DGPs, rather appointing something known as acting DGP. For example, Tamil Nadu again skipped the full-time DGP and names acting DGP in defiance of the Supreme Court ruling. So what is the Supreme Court ruling that talks about appointment of process of appointment of DGP, and what is the role of UPSC in that? I mean, they have already selected IPS officer. Now what role do they want regarding who is selected as the DGP of a state or not? It is actually a long history. There is a background to it, that in the year 2006 a judgment was passed which came to be known as Prakash Singh versus Union of India. Who is this Prakash Singh guy? Prakash Singh ji is actually a very honorable former DGP. He was a DGP of not one but two states. He was a DGP of Uttar Pradesh as well as Assam, and he filed a petition in the year 1996 when most of us were not even born, regarding the need of police reforms in our country. What kind of police reform he was seeking? He was a person who was already an IPS. He has served as a DGP, so he knew that there is a lot of political interference that happen with regard to where the ministries or the chief ministers or other minister, they pressurize the IPS officer as well as other police officer to do certain works which may not really be legal, and then they transfer those officers who do not understand their terms, they transfer them very arbitrarily. This impact the law and order situation as well as the public trust on the police. It reduces the social capital of the police. So he wanted police reforms in terms of appointment process of DGP. He wanted a security of tenure, and in that petition Supreme Court gave this judgment that there must be a transparent process of appointment of DGP in states. How the state should be appointing DGP? First of all, DGP is the highest ranking police officer of a state. It starts from the constable. If you become an IPS officer, you would be first appointed to the rank of ASP, which is not additional superintendent of police but assistant superintendent of police. You start as an IPS here, right? And from that you become ASP, you become SP, you become DG, DIG, then you become IGP, then you become ADGP or additional DGP, and then you get the rank of DGP. It is basically a rank. That person may be given also the post of DGP as well, which is Director General of the Police, but may also be given other posts also. For example, he could be made a Chief of Election Enforcement Directorate or a Chief of any other armed forces. They are same officer of the rank of DGP, which require at least 30 years of service in the IPS. That is the law. Now what Supreme Court gave in this judgment, that if any state want to appoint somebody as the DGP of the state, they must do one thing, that they should create a panel of all the officers that they have in their state who have crossed this 30 years criteria of service, and all of them are eligible to be appointed as DGP, but only one person can be the DGP. Then who should be that person? You should actually send that panel, the name of those 10, 15, how many person that you have, to UPSC again, and they would check the antecedent of that person, whether that person is morally right or not, whether he has any cases pending against him or something. And then out of this panel that the state government would send them, UPSC would again go send back this panel of 3 persons. UPSC would shorten this list, shortlist this panel, and send back to the state name of 3 persons who would be eligible to be appointed as DGP. So A, B, C, 3 persons name UPSC would recommend from amongst the panel, then the person who would have been given to UPSC itself. For example, this A, B, C, D, E, F, G were the people who were recommended by the state government to UPSC. Now UPSC would give this A, B, C name, only these 3 names, out of which state is free to select whether they want C, B or A as the DGP. Let's say they have selected C as the DGP. So that is legally fine. But states are not even doing that. Why? States are actually delaying this whole process. They do not want this process of going through the UPSC, because it is a norm set by UPSC, it is a norm set by Supreme Court itself in this Prakash Singh judgment. They cannot actually violate it also. So what mechanism they have undergone? They are actually not appointing any person as the DGP itself, because for appointing a DGP you need to seek permission from UPSC. They should tell you. But they are actually doing what? They are promoting a DGP. They are promoting acting DGP and giving him all the powers by just using it as a shortcut, not going through the route of UPSC. They are going through the acting DGP route. And UPSC as well as Supreme Court has come down heavily on the state on this. And this is basically the provision of the recent rules that UPSC has passed, that states must send the proposal to UPSC for empanelment of DGP. That was already there. The proposal must be sent at least 3 months before the retirement of the incumbent DGP. If somebody DGP is about to retire, state must send a panel, name of those panel 3 months before his retirement, so that if the last moment has come and you have not still sent the person's name, you would be of course appointing the acting DGP. And if there is some delay on the part of state, if the state are not able to send the names of the panel of the names to the UPSC, then they must take permission from Supreme Court, because UPSC as a body cannot condone the idea that there could be delay in this appointment of DGP. There should be no process of acting DGP. There should be no concept of acting DGP as per the Supreme Court ruling, right? So they now want, if there is any delay that is happening, delay could be happening for any reason. For example, there is a death of DGP who is already sitting there, or there is a resignation, there is a premature relieving from the office. If anything such thing happen, the state must seek the permission from the Supreme Court, and then after that they must give the panel name to the UPSC. But do not take the route of acting DGP process, which is actually circumventing the process that was established by Supreme Court in the Prakash Singh judgment, right? So this is basically the new law of appointment of DGP. But Prakash Singh judgment is not really about the DGP only. It is about police reform itself. Police are direly in the need of reform. They are having fatigue because of overwork and fat due to excessive corruption. So there are problems on both the sides. So Prakash Singh judgment, under this Prakash Singh judgment, Supreme Court gave certain guidelines that there must be establishment of a state security commission, which would actually involve members of civil society also, which would acting as a body, oversight body over police functioning. If there are any torture being happening under the police custody, police torture is happening, or there must be separation of investigation and law and order, so that there is a separation of power. If the same body is investigating law and order, the same body is enforcing law and order, and same body is investigating, then there are chances of collusion between them. They want a state police complaint authority. There must be a police establishment board. Basically, this is the board that they are talking about regarding the transfer. The transfer should not be done generally by the CM on the advice of Council of Ministers. Rather, it should go through an independent body which is known as the State Police Establishment Board, which would seek the transfer, posting and promotion of police officer, reducing direct political interference in personal decision. This would give security of tenure to the people. As they said regarding DGP appointment, there must be empanelment, and empanelment should be of those officers who have at least 2 years of tenure remaining. It should not be that they are very near to the retirement age of 60 and now you are sending their name. There must be security of tenure so that they can to actually take a lot of positive reform in the state. For example, in the recent times, we saw the DGP of Haryana, Mr. OP Singh. He was widely remarked across the state for improving law and order situation in the very short tenure that he had of 3 to 4 months. Had he been given 2 years tenure as per the Prakash Singh judgment, he could have done wonders for the state of Haryana. So for increasing the fixed tenure for the senior police officer, for enhancing the autonomy of the police force, they suggested for creation of police establishment board and using the norm of DGP empanelment process for appointment of these DGPs. So this is police reform for you. This was about in this session of Analyst. Thank you very much. Best of luck.